I'm a 27-year-old woman who's been married to my amazing 30-year-old husband for 5 years, but we've been together for 7. My parents, who are 58 and 60, have never really warmed up to him, but we've always been polite. My younger sister, who's 22, is the apple of my parents' eyes and can do no wrong in their eyes. So my husband and I usually try to avoid her. Last weekend was my dad's 60th birthday, and everyone was invited. My husband and I attended the event knowing my sister would be there, but we expected a pleasant evening celebrating my dad's birthday. Before going further, it's important to mention that my husband follows certain dietary rules because of his religion, but I won't go into detail. However, everyone in the family knows about it and has respected it until now. Unfortunately, after dinner, my sister revealed that she had asked the caterers to include some of the restricted foods to see if my husband would notice. I was furious. Just to be clear, the restricted ingredients were mixed into sauces, so they weren't easily noticeable. Both my husband and I were shocked and decided to leave while my sister argued that it wasn't a big deal and that we needed to lighten up. After the party, my parents remained silent and just watched. Later, they texted me, suggesting that I should consider my sister's young age and ignorance. I chose not to respond. That brings me to the title. Since the party, my husband and I have completely cut off contact with everyone. We haven't replied to any messages or calls, and neither have my parents. However, my parents came to the house, but we didn't answer the door. I avoided the reception at work when they showed up there. I haven't seen them at all today. Some police officers knocked on the door, saying they received a missing persons report about me. Luckily, it was sorted out quickly, and I was never actually missing. Now my friends are telling me that I wasted police resources when I could have simply texted my parents to say I didn't want to hear from them. I just believe that as a grown woman, I shouldn't have to justify my whereabouts to my parents. I don't think I'm at fault here. It's not fair to say I wasted police resources. It was my parents who filed a false report claiming I was missing. They obviously knew you were upset and ignored their attempts to reach out. You might consider reopening communication if you believe they're genuinely sorry, but not if they're just going to defend your sister's behavior again. Nope. Your sister is 22. She knew what she was doing. It wasn't a mistake like saying, "Oops, I didn't know Worcestershire sauce had anchovies," or "I didn't realize that soy sauce might contain gluten." She intentionally asked the caterers to add these ingredients in a way that wouldn't be noticeable. There's no excuse for that. I wouldn't want to talk to them unless they started holding your sister accountable. It's terrible what she did. Yes, favoring one child over another and calling the police to report someone missing are typical tactics of narcissistic parents. They called the police to pressure you into reconnecting with them and to make themselves look caring to others. They're trying to make you feel guilty and reconnect with them without admitting their mistakes. I agree. Reporting you as missing was just a way for them to assert control. They knew you weren't missing. They were just upset that you weren't responding. They're aware that you've cut off contact because of your sister's actions. They were trying to provoke a reaction from you. You didn't go down to reception at work, so your employer wouldn't have reported you missing or done anything to validate their report. Regarding the neighbor situation, a new resident moved in above me about a month ago. Before she moved in, the building renovated her unit, so she has hardwood floors everywhere except the bedroom. My unit and others like mine haven't been renovated, so we have carpeted floors. Everything was fine until she started vacuuming her floors every week, even the hardwood ones. This can last for about half an hour. The problem is that I work from home, and she vacuums during the day when I'm in meetings. It's really tough for me to focus on my meetings when this happens. Eventually, I went up to her apartment, knocked on her door, and explained the situation. She was understanding and asked when would be a better time for her to vacuum so it doesn't bother me. I questioned why she needed to vacuum the hardwood floors instead of just sweeping or using a Swiffer. She mentioned having a cat, so she vacuums and uses a Swiffer to ensure she gets all the hair up. I suggested she consider sweeping and Swiffering instead of vacuuming. She said that wasn't feasible but promised to try vacuuming during non-work hours. I also asked her to avoid vacuuming too late in the day. After our conversation, she simply closed the door, which made me wonder if I was being unreasonable. However, I need to be able to focus on my work. Am I in the wrong here? You might be. She has the right to vacuum whenever she needs to. And she was polite and flexible in discussing timing with you. Consider investing in noise-canceling headphones for your meetings and try not to inconvenience others. It seems a bit entitled to demand that your neighbor doesn't vacuum during the day. Your neighbor was willing to find a fair solution by vacuuming at a time that suited you. You don't have the right to dictate how someone cleans their own place. Sorry, but many people vacuum hardwood floors. She agreed not to do it while you're working, and you also requested that it not be too late. Come on, once a week for 30 minutes is reasonable. If you can't focus for 30 minutes, that's your issue. If I were in your shoes, I might just vacuum my floors for an hour every workday out of spite. My wife and I have 8 kids between us. And this story mainly revolves around our young teen Gina. Recently, Gina expressed her desire to become vegan. We agreed to cover the grocery bills, but she'll need to plan and cook her own meals. We won't rely on frozen foods or takeout, ensuring our meals remain healthy. Initially, Gina wasn't thrilled. She suggested minor changes to accommodate her, like using vegan pasta and cooking meatballs separately. However, we declined, as we're not willing to alter our diet because of her choice to go vegan. She agreed and went to her room. Later, she began sending my wife and me links to expensive cookware sets, one costing $800, along with plates, cups, bowls for $200, and her own utensils. When I asked why she was sending them, she claimed she needed new cookware and tableware because ours were contaminated. I assured her ours were fine and suggested she use her allowance or start babysitting to buy her own. Later that day, one of my sons called to inform me that Gina was telling him and their siblings to remove all their snacks from the fridge in the game room. The game room has a small kitchen because Gina needs it for her vegan food. When I confronted her about this, she argued that her vegan items couldn't be stored with our food and suggested taking over the game room kitchenette as a compromise. Fed up with her demands, I told Gina I was done with her vegan demands and that she couldn't maintain a vegan lifestyle while living in our house. She reacted with a tantrum, believing I was being harsh, and has barely spoken to me since. I wanted to know if I was in the wrong. Edit, she compares it to our rule against seafood due to our child's severe allergy or making special meals for our oldest due to their autoimmune condition. Gina can eat whatever she wants, and we're happy to accommodate her. I'm not the one at fault here, but this situation is more complex than just being about veganism. Having a daughter at this age means she may feel like she has no control over her life and is trying to assert herself. However, let's be honest, teenage girls can be quite emotional. It's challenging enough with 8 kids, let alone half that number. With so many children, some might feel overlooked. Additionally, considering we have one child with a shellfish allergy and another with severe medical issues requiring dietary restrictions, our family's food choices are already influenced by health concerns. I wonder if Gina's veganism is a plea for attention and understanding she feels she lacks. I see it as a cry for help. It seems like a cry for attention. Asking for expensive cookware may be a way for the parents to demonstrate they're willing to invest in her. Wanting her own space in the fridge could be her attempt to carve out a place in the home that's solely hers. I suspect she's longing for her parents' recognition. The way the OP responded to her initial request, putting the burden back on the girl, seems harsh. She had to meet certain conditions just to be vegan, with the threat of it being revoked. The parents didn't offer help or support. Instead, they judged her. I'm sorry, but in this situation, you may be in the wrong. My sister Stephanie, 31, was always our parents' favorite, while I, 28, and my other sister Emily, 33, were often overlooked. Our parents allowed Stephanie to insult and take Emily's belongings because she's your baby sister. They treated me similarly, saying I should listen to Stephanie because your big sister knows better. Stephanie always received more attention at family gatherings. She received more gifts on birthdays and got to pick the theme and guest list. This favoritism continued into adulthood. For instance, she chose a restaurant I disliked for my graduation dinner and announced her pregnancy there, which my parents praised as the news of the family's first grandchild. They dismissed my feelings, saying a diploma is just paper. Realizing I'd never be valued like Stephanie, I've cut off contact with her and my parents except for emergencies involving other family members. Emily has done the same. Communication has slightly increased since our mother passed away, but it remains minimal. I'm preparing for my wedding, and my father contacted me about him and Stephanie arriving early because he assumed he would walk me down the aisle, with Stephanie serving as an honorary lead bridesmaid. However, I've already chosen my best friend Matt, who's been by my side since college, to walk me down the aisle. My father reacted negatively, claiming it was disrespectful to prioritize Matt over him, the one who raised me. He then pressed about Stephanie's role as a bridesmaid. I explained that Stephanie wasn't invited because I wanted the focus to be on me and my milestones, rather than her stealing the spotlight. Despite my explanation, he continued to argue. Frustrated, I told him he could walk the daughter he cared about down the aisle and ended the call. Now, several people, mostly extended family, are criticizing me, calling me an idiot for various reasons. They bring up how my mother fell extremely ill during her pregnancy with Stephanie, and doctors were uncertain about their survival. They argue that I can't truly comprehend the fear of possibly losing a child. Many insist that I'm wrong to exclude Stephanie from the wedding because, in a sense, she's also a victim of our parents' favoritism. They suggest that Stephanie, who's facing challenges in life, could benefit from sisterly support and involvement. I don't agree with their viewpoints, but does this make me the idiot? No, you're not the idiot. Stephanie can seek support from professionals for her difficulties, but you shouldn't have to endure anxiety on your wedding day. As for your father, you can't assume he's the favorite child. Disregard the extended family and their justifications. They haven't lived your experiences, so disregard them. It's like something out of Shakespeare, and I love it. This was precisely my perspective. If Stephanie suffered from our parents' favoritism, so did I. Unless Stephanie demonstrates understanding of her hurtful behavior and can attend an event without causing issues, she's not welcome. You know who else was a victim of our parents' favoritism? Me. It's time Stephanie is held accountable, just like your father. Enjoy your wedding without them for once. This day is about you, surrounded by those who truly care, like your sister Emily. I hope you have a fantastic day and create wonderful memories with her. Story 2. I'm a 33-year-old mom of two. Last week, my sister, who's 37, asked if I could babysit her tween son, Ben, over the weekend. She and her husband needed to attend a child-free wedding. Initially, Ben was supposed to stay with our parents, but they canceled on her. After discussing it with my husband, we agreed to have Ben stay with us from Saturday morning until Sunday afternoon. Our kids enjoy spending time with their older cousin, so it seemed like a good opportunity for them to bond. My sister had mentioned that Ben is a picky eater and has ADHD, but I didn't realize the extent of his pickiness until I looked after him that weekend. When it was time for dinner on Saturday, I mentioned to Ben that we were having spaghetti. He immediately became agitated, stating that he didn't like spaghetti. I asked if he had ever tried it, and he insisted he had and didn't enjoy it. While preparing the meal, I suggested he try plain spaghetti or just the sauce separately, thinking it might help change his mind. However, he adamantly refused and began raising his voice. I must admit, I haven't encountered significant issues with picky eating in my own children, who are both neurotypical, so I felt somewhat out of my depth. To make matters more challenging, Ben began insisting on having chicken nuggets for dinner, which upset my kids, as they also started requesting the same. I firmly informed Ben that spaghetti was what was being served for dinner and that I wouldn't be preparing a separate meal for him, especially since we didn't have chicken nuggets available. Ben reacted by screaming at me and retreating to the bathroom. My husband attempted to calm him down and coax him out, which eventually succeeded after about 20 minutes. Despite our efforts, Ben remained steadfast in his refusal to try the spaghetti or sauce. I offered him the option to make himself a sandwich or toast using ingredients from the kitchen. Ben opted to make sandwiches with deli slices and cheese, which became his dinner for the evening. When my sister came to pick up Ben the next day, I pulled her aside and shared what had happened. She was visibly upset and criticized my handling of the situation. She explained that Ben's safe food options for dinner are chicken nuggets, plain ramen noodles, and mashed potatoes, emphasizing that he wouldn't eat anything else. I countered by saying she never informed me about his dietary restrictions. She argued that Ben is old enough to express his preferences and that I should have accommodated his request for a separate meal. She deemed it cruel to deny him his safe foods and accused me of not properly feeding him. You're not in the wrong. Your sister should have either provided Ben with his own dinner or informed you about his dietary needs so you could plan accordingly. It's unfair of her to criticize you for her failure to communicate effectively. I understand your situation, I also have a child with autism who faces similar challenges with food. My husband and I typically handle our nephew's meals by either providing him with a list of options or the food itself when he's not with us. If he chooses to eat, that's great. If not, it's not a big surprise, and we make him something when we return home. It seems you're being unfairly criticized here. You're not an idiot because, in the end, you didn't force a neurodivergent child to cook for himself. Rather, you attempted to respect his preferences and needs. As a parent, it's understandable that you would inquire about any food preferences or allergies when caring for someone else's child. While your sister may not have informed you about her son's dietary requirements, it's clear you were aware of his picky eating habits. Despite this, you tried to encourage him to try something he didn't want, leading to a distressing situation. However, your sister also shares responsibility here. She should have communicated her son's safe foods and dietary needs in advance and could have offered to contribute to his meals. Ultimately, both parties could have handled the situation better.